Welcome to the More Demand podcast, where we help you generate more demand for your products and services. Every episode we give you tips, tricks and tutorials on how to get the best out of your digital marketing. Less frustration, more demand. Here's your host Lawrence Howlett with this week's freshest tips.
Hello and welcome to the More Demand podcast, episode number 30. This week I'm speaking with Tom Hunt, who spent 4 years studying a master's degree in chemistry at the London Imperial College and then followed the herd into a corporate job where he spent 3 years bumbling along. I'm going to test Tom later on chemistry, so watch out for that right at the end. But the important thing is he has built a number of businesses, and by his own admission, he has failed at a few of them as well. But now he has the formula for success, and he's built an online marketplace that connects entrepreneurs with virtual assistants. He's also done a TEDx talk, and he's appeared on none other than The Dragon's Den, a BBC TV show here in the UK, where you get an absolute grilling about your business plan. I think the same one in the States is Shark Tank. So we have Dragon's Den over here, and he appeared actually in leggings on there. They call them meggings, I think now, which are men's leggings. So he's going to divulge all of that story, and he's excited about sharing all of the learnings from that experience and giving that to you in the form that you can then take on board and launch your own business and not fail at the things that he got wrong in the first place. So without further ado, let's welcome Tom Hunt on to the More Demand podcast. Hi Tom, welcome to the More Demand podcast.
Hello, Lawrence. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Yeah, good to have you on. So, yeah, thanks for reaching out and wanting to come on the show. And I really just wanted to, bring people up to speed on, a little bit of your background and what you're doing now. So, fill us in on, what's brought you onto the More Demand podcast.
Yeah, sure. Like everything up to today in the past 26 years. I'm going to summarize. I can do it. I'll summarize it in 2 minutes. How does that sound?
Yeah, it sounds pretty good. The elevator pitch of Tom Hunt.
Okay. So, 2 minutes. I'm going to put a timer on in my head. So, year 0 to year 22, I don't think I really had an entrepreneurial bone in my body, or at least I didn't show it. I didn't do anything entrepreneurial. I was good in school. I was good at university, and then I graduated and went to work for Ernst & Young and Accenture in the corporate world. And then when I was 22, I think a real turning point for me was when I was actually sat on a night bus with my friend wearing tights after a Halloween party. And one of us made a joke about us selling these tights for men because we were comfortable and we thought we looked good. And it was at that point, away from that point, it was over the next week where we actually took that idea and did something with it. Previously, I'd never really done anything about the stupid business ideas I'd had. And so a week later, after being on that bus, we had a market stall in East London and we're selling leggings, female leggings that we bought from eBay and drew on our male logo just with some Tipp-Ex for £15 on this trendy market stall in East London. So that was a real turning point for me at 22, actually sort of doing something with an idea and like trying to help people in the market stall. We actually, I'll let you guess actually, Lawrence. Out of the 18 pairs of female leggings we had in stock, how many do you think we sold on that cold day on the 22nd of December, 2012? I'm
going to guess 0.
You got it right. Yeah.
Awesome.
So we spent all this time working during the week to make this amazing market store. We sold nothing, but we still persevered and thought, we don't have much to lose by setting up an e-commerce store. Like the cost was so low, or they're even lower now, but they were so low 4 years ago. So we set that up, and then 3 months later, we actually sold a pair to someone that we didn't know. And these were real male leggings that we had designed, that we'd designed ourselves and imported from Shanghai. And that was another turning point because it actually helped someone, and they'd given money in exchange for that value, and the feeling was very energetic and addictive. So it was at this age, 22, that I decided that I needed to leave the corporate world. And in the past 4 years since then, I spent pretty much like all of my time when I'm not socializing or exercising, like learning about online marketing and learning about online business. And I've probably set up like 10 to 12 like ventures that would like could be seen as failures. And I ultimately left the corporate world about a year and a half ago, and have since set up an online marketplace that connects entrepreneurs and virtual assistants. Actually, that is my core focus at the moment, and one of the reasons that I reached out to you guys, because I thought, I guess some of the lessons over these past 4 years of failing a lot and like succeeding a couple of times could be of value to people listening.
Yeah, so those failures, they're great stories to share. So talk me through, you said 10 to 12, businesses in sort of the last, few years. What's been your biggest failure that you've gone, apart from the leggings story, because I like that. And unfortunately, I've been privy to seeing you on Dragon's Den in those as
you saw the episode.
Yeah.
Strong pitch, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
that's got to be the biggest failure, I think. Like in terms of publicity and exposure for a failure, that was definitely the biggest.
So do you think that was because of a market fit problem, or what do you think was the main reason there?
I think the audience of the 5 dragons that we had, well actually, so let's clarify, like I'm saying that the Dragon's Den appearance was a failure in exclamation marks. I actually don't think it was a failure. The leggings company is like still going, and we're selling like more leggings every year. So I would actually call the leggings company one of the successes that I've had.
Okay.
But that appearance, that pitch, the pitch itself was a failure. The whole thing, like going on Dragon's Den, I don't think was a failure because we got massive exposure for it.
Oh, really? So there was a good sort of, after the show experience in terms of uplift of orders.
Oh, yeah. Like if you put any business on TV in front of like 2 million people on a Sunday night, then you're going to get some exposure, right? So yeah, we definitely saw a massive uptake in traffic and orders the month after that episode.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's at least a good outcome for appearing on national TV in leggings. And I'm sure that, there are men out there that enjoy your products. Not one for me, but I'm sure there are.
Have you ever tried leggings, Lawrence, like running or going to the gym?
Actually, you know what? Saying that, I'm a cyclist, so I do wear but in sport, but I'm not sure as a fashion item. I definitely get it in sport, yes, and running, yes. Yeah. So I don't know, maybe it's like a few many years ago, people laughed at people with umbrellas. So maybe it's that sort of phase. Definitely. Maybe. So you've had lots of these different ideas, and now you're launching or have launched this virtual assistant business. How did you go through those idea phases and test them and work out, this one's a goer, I'm going to give this the green light?
Yeah. Okay, now I think we're going to have to go back into the story again, if that's okay, Lawrence.
Go for it.
I'm going to keep it concise though. So after we made that sale with the leggings company, I realized I wanted to leave the corporate world. I was working in Ernst & Young and Accenture in project management and outsourcing. We also had a virtual assistant within the male leggings business that would do all the outs and the admin and customer service, so we could just spend time designing leggings and working out how to sell the leggings, right? We were all working full-time in the corporate world at the time. So me looking for ideas of businesses to start that would enable me to leave the corporate world, I thought, why not try and harness the service that we had with our virtual assistant from the Philippines with the leggings company and package that up and deliver that to other startups in London. And I mean, in terms of idea validation for that, all I really had was my experience with the virtual assistant and my experience in project management and outsourcing, which was like my competitive advantage over other people doing the same thing. But in terms of validation, all I really did was email a few founders of startups that I just found online and asked to go for a coffee with them and just sort of talked through their issues around admin work and whether it would be a viable choice for them. And 2 of them were awesome guys, didn't have a need really for a virtual assistant, but one of them said that yes, and if I was to start the business, they would work with me. So it was on that positive outcome from that meeting was my only real validation for the idea.
Yeah, so it's sort of, there's a method called the ask method, and, lots of people talk about that. And, Pat Flynn from Smart Passive Income podcast, he always talks about, just going out for a coffee and connecting with it. And in fact, we had Rand Fishkin on from Moz.com, and he definitely, he always wants to go out for a beer with people and, ask them real questions. So he'll go to, the big conferences around and just talk to people in the industry and find out what their challenges are and how, they might want to look at solving them. So, okay, so we've done some idea validation just by talking to people, to real people, with real problems. So that's, good. And you've got experience of using this yourself. Now, I'm just interested, what sparked my, a little thing is, have you ever read The 4-Hour Work Week? Because I'm just wondering whether, you used a virtual assistant because of, the outcomes of that book, or, did that influence you in any way?
Yeah, like I definitely read that, and I don't remember when. It probably did, to be honest. Like the issue that we had was we were all working full time in these corporate roles, and the 4 hours or so a week that we had to invest in the leggings, we were doing doing data entry or dealing with customer. So we were like, this business is never going to grow if we can't spend time on designing and selling leggings. So it was more a necessity, I think, for the situation that we're in.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. So once you've figured out some challenges that people are having, obviously you had those challenges yourself, so you're learning, by doing it yourself. You then enter the build phase, I guess, the building the business out. What did that look like? What went into the sort of build phase after you think, yep, this idea is a goer? How did that look?
So I think we should actually skip forward a little bit as well, because the business that we're talking about now, this outsourced service business, is actually the precursor to the marketplace. And the build phase for the outsourced service business was not very comprehensive because it was very manual. It was me working with the startup, understanding what tasks they could outsource, and then connecting them with someone in my team in the Philippines. And after sort of scaling that to 6 clients, leaving the corporate world, I realized that I was working in their systems and not building my own system. So I actually decided to stop delivering and marketing that business and then build a online marketplace that would automate a lot of those actions, that we would obviously make a lower margin per VA hired, but the business would be infinitely more scalable. So I think I should transfer this question onto the build phase for the marketplace. I think that would be...
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Talk me through that. So you've got some software to develop. You've got lots of different systems, maybe some calendars and things like that to integrate. How did you go about looking at that?
Sure. So I fortunately, in my transition from corporate world to being like a full-time entrepreneur, I spent 3 months working at a startup agency. So they take people's ideas and build them for them, like exchange equity and cash. And in those 3 months, I was actually a project manager. So I was building other people's startups. So what I basically did is took the methodology that they use, this company called Studiography, and they're based in London. They're awesome.
Good plug.
And basically, instead of doing that for a client, I just did it for myself. And so the process always starts out with sort of just writing a document on your ideal vision. So this is before you spec a product. It's like the ideal final vision that you want for the software thing that you're building.
So this is the big pit. If it blew up to the size of Twitter or Facebook, what does it look like?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And then so once you have that, I then transferred all of the user stories or things that people would need to do with the software into a spreadsheet. Okay, and this was the final vision. So it was really complex, like a massive list. And then the next action, once all of that specification is built, is to be really, really harsh with yourself and pick out the leanest possible number of those specifications that would allow a usable product.
Yeah, so it's your MVP, your minimum viable product.
Effectively, yes. And now speaking from hindsight, because we actually spent between 5 and 6 months building the marketplace, so I could have been much more hard with myself on leaving out parts of the specification in order to get something like into the real world faster.
Yeah, so I think that 5 to 6 month period. A lot of, I know from the web agency that I run. A lot of people come to us and they've got a huge system spec, and just trying to pull that down into something that's manageable and obviously aligns with their budget aspirations. That's such an important part, even before you start building a thing.
Yeah, because you really like. I know we spoke about validation earlier in this chat, when I actually got someone to say that they would pay, that they would use my service. You really don't know if someone's going to pay until you ask them for money, right? Now, I had other people that said they would probably use the marketplace, but I didn't actually ask them for money for 5 to 6 months.
Yeah.
And you don't know for sure until you get the money in the bank. So if I was to do it again, I would either ask for money up front, or I would shorten that cycle to 2 months maximum to get something at the point where I would be able to ask for money.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point. Until people put their hand in their pocket and start to pay for these products or services, no one it's not a commitment until they've paid for it. Even if they're paying a discounted rate, or maybe they're getting an extra value add, because it's a beta product. We're going to onboard you personally, or whatever it is. Get people to commit with their money. That then also enables you to spend that on the development phase as well. So it's a win-win, definitely. Exactly. So in the build phase, what were some of your your biggest challenges, apart from sort of getting down the spec to a minimum viable product?
It's definitely communication with developers. Now, I went to the freelancer marketplaces and found a development team in Egypt who are like awesome, really good developers, but the communication, A, if you're virtual, and B, if someone is from a different culture and English is not their first language, you have to be very, very clear about what the timelines and the specification of what you want built. And again, I was fortunate. I worked in Accenture, where we were managing software builds with developers around the world, so I had some level of skill with this, but it was still, if I did it again, I'd be much better, and I'd be so clear about what we wanted to build, and that they understood what we wanted to build and over what timelines. So communication when working with a remote development team, I think, is a massive risk for anybody considering doing this. And like if I was to think of how you could mitigate that risk, it's just being ultra clear.
Yeah, I mean, one of the ways that in the 4-hour work week, to reference that again, Tim says that put your spec across and then ask them to write it in their own words. What tasks have they got to do in their own words? And that just makes sure that they understand that. So, if you are working with that remote team, do give them the spec or have the Skype call, and then ask them to email you immediately after that Skype call with, how they interpret that. And then you can check that and amend it. So I think that'd be a good way to help mitigate risk. It's not going to mitigate all of it, but definitely to mitigate some of it. So when did you sort of get close to the end of the build phase? What were you teeing up ready for the launch phase, or had you already started the marketing during the build phase? Did that run parallel? How did that work?
Yeah, so I mean, with a two-sided marketplace, it's a bit more complex. Like you have to market to two sides. Yeah, exactly. So what I spent. Fortunately, because I had such a long time waiting for the build phase to be completed, I had a lot of time to make the marketing plan for both sides of the marketplace. And one of the points that I read, I think it was from Sanjeet Chowdhury's blog, platform.info, which if anybody's thinking about building a marketplace, definitely subscribe and read his blog, is that when you're building the two-sided marketplace, you need to select the side that will be easier to bring to the marketplace, and then artificially build that supply or demand. In this case, it was the supply, so virtual assistants. Like I always knew the challenge was bringing entrepreneurs to the marketplace, and that if we brought entrepreneurs, it would be fine. So we actually artificially built the supply side. So we recruited, I think it was 57 virtual assistants through this 5-step recruitment process that I designed to the marketplace for launch day. so that when we did open the floodgates on launch day, not that that was what happened, and we brought entrepreneurs to the platform, they wouldn't be sort of left lacking. They would be happy because they would be able to find the connection that they were looking for. So to answer your question, yeah, we spent like 3 months recruiting virtual assistants, and I spent quite a lot of time just planning how I was to market to entrepreneurs. Didn't actually do much marketing before the launch to the demand side, to the entrepreneurs, apart from just having a landing page up and collecting email addresses.
So you were building an email list during the build phase, ready for launch. So how did what were some of the specific tactics that you were using to capture them? Were you offering sort of lead magnets or?
No, I think I was like just sharing. It was just a simple page on the domain. And I had a video that I recorded myself, and I just used curiosity. Like I said, Virtual Valley is the name of the platform. It's going to change everything, or something along those lines. And just said, if you would like early access, then drop your email address below. And I didn't do any paid marketing to that. I just sort of shared it on my social media channels, and anybody that I spoke to that was interested, I was like, just head to the domain and watch this video. So it wasn't like a serious campaign. I think I only had 100 email addresses for when we did launch.
So talk me through what happened on launch day. So when you pressed the button on launch day, talk me through, what emotions you were going through, what happened, and talk us through that. Yeah.
So, I mean, what happened? So we pressed the button and it was live and everything was ready. So in terms of entrepreneurs signing up on launch day, I think it was a tiny number. It was like 3 people. A couple from the launch list, and then also someone that had just came from a guest blog post that I'd done. But our first virtual assistant hired occurred on launch day, and that feeling, I was on the live chat, like talking him through the process, because it's a little bit complex to hire someone, or at least it used to be, and it was just absolutely amazing. It was almost like selling that first pair of male leggings on like 4 years back, and just sort of working with someone and helping them with the thing that you stressed over and built and sweated over for 6 months. It was a really amazing feeling, actually.
Yeah, I bet, even getting your first subscriber, your first comment on your blog, your first like, your first share, your first sale, all of those things need to be celebrated, definitely. Yes. So, it's good that you're celebrating that success. But if you were to do launch day again with what you know now, what would you do differently?
Launch day would have occurred on 2 months into the build process, and it would have been very small scale. Like, I would have just emailed the launch list. I would have shared on my social media channels, and I would just basically what we've done, but even on an even smaller scale. So I have actually 2 phases to my marketing plan for this marketplace. I can give a really brief overview.
Yeah, sure.
Phase 1 is just sort of like guest content, our own content, and social media. And this is to just bring a trickle of entrepreneurs to the marketplace, so we can basically do things that don't scale and develop a relationship with each of these entrepreneurs to get the feedback that's going to shape the platform, so that when we move to phase 2 and implement the 4 channels that I think are going to bring us large traffic, we're not spending money and time sending that traffic into a leaky bucket, and we have something that people actually will use for a number of months. So I would just I'd have exactly the same phases, phase 1 and phase 2, but phase 1 would have occurred after 2 months of build, when we had something really scrappy, and would have probably been on a smaller scale because I wouldn't want to share it with too many people.
Yeah, no. So it's definitely, a good approach, and follows what, the big sites like Facebook did. First of all, it was a very, very niche site only for, the people within his university. Then it broadened out to the next and the next phase and the next phase. And then it dropped the whole, you need to be part of a university thing. I even remember, signing up to Facebook when my university wasn't on there, and I had to lie and say I was in another university. So, it's that get it out there. Don't be afraid of failing or getting criticism or, just getting the product out there to get feedback, constructive feedback. I think that, that's such an important point, before you go and think, right, it's a 12-month build and then I'm going to launch it and they're all going to, come at once. It's not going to happen like that. Mm-hmm. So what, in terms of now you're into, you've launched the product, you've got your first customer, what does the growth phase look like? What are you doing to grow the business, day by day?
So we're still in phase one. So we're tracking everything on our podcast and our blog, but I think we can leave phase one when we have 100 guest content spots. And for it, like they hit the guest content spot, right? So like I'm talking about Virtual Valley, like on someone else's podcast. For me, it counts as part of phase one.
Yeah.
We have X amount of Twitter followers. I don't have the figure in front of me. I think it's 50K between my account and my personal one and the Virtual Valley one. And then we also have, I can't remember what the other metric is. But so once we have that, then I will work with the feedback from the entrepreneurs and a technical co-founder that I've actually just recently brought on and given a significant part of the business because I couldn't manage the development and technology side and the growth myself. So once we have those, and I'm forecasting probably the end of quarter two, so at the end of June, I think we'll have a marketplace that it's basically not a leaky bucket and we can move on to phase two. Now, to actually answer your question about growth, like what are we doing? I spend the majority of my time, now I have the technical co-founder who's managing the technology, and I have a manager in the Philippines who's managing the supply side, is creating content for and building relationships with influencers in niches that have a high concentration of our target customer. So it's basically, I spent like 3 months guest blogging and produced, I think, 47 guest blog posts now, ranging from tiny blogs to HubSpot. So that was very time intensive.
Yeah, I know. Writing those guest posts is, very time intensive. But as I've just done a podcast previous to this that was all about the hustle and the grind, episode 29. And that is exactly what you need to do. You need to go through those guest posting phases. You need to go out there and get visibility. Without that, your products and services are just not going to be seen. So, it's good that you're in that hustle and grind phase right now, as Gary Vaynerchuk always says. You've got to give it the hustle. So, what does that look like on a sort of, what does your typical day now look like, as an entrepreneur? Talk us through that.
Yeah. So I think it's really crucial actually for any entrepreneur is I wake up and I go through like some morning ritual where I like meditate and do stretches and stuff. And then before I check email, Skype, phone, like WhatsApp or Twitter, I'll make sure that I spend like 10 minutes just thinking, like trying to be strategic, and then 1 hour to an hour and a half doing value creation work. So whether that's reaching out to people to appear on their podcast like yourself, or creating a guest blog post for someone, or designing a new process for our customer service VAs. So I try and make sure I do all of that before I get distracted and use up my valuable mental energy on other people's agendas. And I think that's absolutely crucial for long-term success. And since I've been doing this, my productivity has skyrocketed. So if anybody is like who's listening feels like they're really busy and they're working all the time, but they're not spending this time period. I think it's best in the morning, but it could be other times during the day where they're completely undistracted. Then I would highly recommend just trying that out.
Yeah, I think I completely resonate with that. And when I was on John Lee Dumas's podcast on Entrepreneur on Fire, my quote was create before you consume. So nice. Exactly that. That's where you want to be. That's the first thing I do in the morning. Get up, sit on the computer with the coffee, and then write that blog post, write that service page for the website, write that one thing that you've been saying I'm going to get done all week. And that first 90 minutes, before I go into the office is my time to be at my most creative. And for me, that's in the morning. You know, some people, I know Pat Flynn from Smart Passive Income, he's a nighttime person, so he'll do that 9-10 o'clock at night. But for me, it's definitely first thing.
Create before you consume.
Yeah, that's it. Big letters. You know, that's where you need it, right in the office. You know, create before you consume. In fact, I might do that. I might do a little print off for everyone. So that sounds good. So talk me through some of in your growth phase right now. What sort of campaigns are you doing apart from, because are you just bootstrapping in terms of guest posting, you know, all the free stuff that you can do, or are you doing any paid?
So should we talk about phase 2?
Yeah, go for it. Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So phase 2 has 4 parts. I'm going to invest in Facebook ads once I develop my skills in Facebook ads, because I don't think they're sufficient to achieve a cost per acquisition that is compatible with our lifetime value at the moment. So I'm going to invest a lot of time before I actually invest a lot of money in Facebook ads, but I'm going to train myself on that.
Well, have a listen to episode 28 with Stacey. She is awesome at Facebook ads and retargeting.
I will. I'm going to episode 28. Did you say?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So number 1, Facebook ads, paid acquisition. Number 2 is a double-sided referral scheme similar to what Dropbox did. If you invite your friend, you get X amount of free hours, and they get X amount of free hours. Number 3 is, and this is really interesting actually. So I think the biggest advantage for guest blogging now that I didn't see that much traffic, or I got solid links, but I didn't see massive traffic from guest posting, is the relationships that you build. So I've now developed pretty good relationships with with a lot of people in like the online marketing world that have an audience of our potential to target customer. So I can then sort of go to them and potentially devise an affiliate relationship where we'd create a piece of content, maybe a webinar, where we would make an offer at the end and X% of our revenue would go to that person. So like the third part of phase 4 is this affiliate partnerships with influencers that I've already built relationships with.
I mean, that is massive at the moment. You see, places like Lead Pages, they are killing that space. Even Amy Porterfield, webinars that convert, a fantastic course that I've been through myself. Okay. And it is really an amazing platform. These webinars at the moment. I was just speaking to Joshua on the last podcast that I recorded this afternoon as well. He was talking about his webinars that he's doing into his coaching program for real estate, a 2-hour webinar that adds insane value, and then at the end of it, a 5-minute pitch. He converts at 10% on that webinar. Very nice. And that we're talking about $2,500 a month coaching programs. So they absolutely convert. Without a doubt. So have a look into webinars. If you're thinking about that. So, and that goes hand in hand with bootstrapping, because you can just do a Google Hangout or something like that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, maybe we'd invest in GoToWebinar if it was especially big audience. But yeah, you can just do it on Hangouts.
Yeah, I mean, I'd hosted, a little hangout the other day. It was a live piece, and then uploaded the recorded, version afterwards. And
did you make an offer at the end?
No, I didn't actually pitch.
Purely value.
Yeah, I purely valued it because, I just wanted to first of all try out Hangouts. I hadn't used Hangouts before. I was, a GoToWebinar person. I just wanted to try the sort of Hangouts platform, and it's an idea that I've got for the podcast as well, to actually do them live and then just send out the podcast as an audio version afterwards. So I was thinking about Hangouts for that. So watch this space. You might be seeing the live More Demand podcast soon. It's really, really doing well in the webinar space. So what sort of influencers have you been talking to, and how actually, more importantly, how have you been approaching them and getting in touch and getting their attention?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, cool. So I think the most effective way to get anybody's attention, like even whether they are an influencer or not, is to help them, is to add value. And I can do a story or timeline of things I've done to get on John Lee Dumas, the guy you just mentioned's radar. So, and I'll take you through the full spectrum of our interaction. And then maybe in a year or so, when I've carried on building that relationship, we can have an affiliate webinar together. Who knows? Anyway, so start off by purely following him on Twitter, commenting on his blog for Entrepreneur on Fire, retweeting his stuff, just like so we just get on his radar a little bit. And then I'm writing a guest blog post on someone else's blog with the title Why You Should Not Start a Podcast. And I was just collating opinions on why people shouldn't start a podcast from some of the largest podcasters in the world. So I reach out to John just by email and say, look, I'm writing this post. Can I just get your answer to this question? I'll link to you and I'll share your Twitter handle on this other blog that's quite big. So we get the response. And he's like, yes, okay. So that's like the start of the in-person relationship. Next stage is I actually start our podcast with what I learned from building that blog. And I then reach back out to John upon the launch date of our podcast. And I say, look, I listened to your advice on why you should not start a podcast. And I actually am going to start a podcast. Would you mind sharing it with your Twitter followers? John shares a tweet in front of his, 40,000 Twitter followers.
Amazing.
Next, this happened. It's happened 2 days ago. So I'm now writing a roundup post on our own blog about people using virtual assistants and like why they would do it and why they think it's valuable. So I emailed John saying, I'm writing this roundup post. Would you mind contributing? He emailed back today actually saying that no, I can't remember his wording. I think either he wasn't using a virtual assistant or he didn't have time to contribute. So he said no then. However, I do have another email from him. I can reply and just say, thank you, John. So still on his radar again. So moving forward, I don't have a plan of how this is going to work, but there'll be a few more touch points. And then maybe I would request to be interviewed on his show. I would like somehow connect him with someone that I know that might help him. I'd obviously continue supporting his stuff on Twitter. And then ultimately, over probably a number of years, like 1 or 2 years, that could result in having an affiliate relationship with him.
Yeah, that sort of process of, over time is so important. So many people, especially millennials, just want it now, and that sort of click and it's done mentality does not work when you're trying to build real life connections with people. It's over time. It goes back to the same analogy of, you're not going to walk into a bar and ask someone to marry you. You might do, I don't know, but it's that sort of mentality. So just out of interest, that approach that you took, was that from Alex Turnbull on Groove HQ's blog? Because that pretty much follows what he did, and that is a great blog to follow for the journey of a SaaS company. Yeah, I have followed his blog. I've read a few of his articles. They're very honest about their journey, right? I haven't seen his influencer outreach methods. Where did I learn that? I think it was just coming into like the guest blogging and content marketing game. You just pick that stuff up as you go, I think. Yeah, exactly. It's about, as you said, adding value. So, I look at my Twitter account now. I've got, I spoke to John earlier today, actually, just asking him for a recommendation on, someone to talk about email marketing and having that, influencer list. I asked Neil Patel as well, could he recommend someone else than him to talk about conversion rate optimization. So, these influence just give you access to, it's like having the best black book in the world, of being able to reach out to these people. And I think, that guest posting piece is an excellent way to start bootstrapping, and especially, asking people to contribute to your guest posts as well. That's definitely a smart idea. So how did you, I quickly want to ask you, how did you, you have these amazing people that you can just reach out to and ask for a favor, but that didn't happen just overnight, right? That is probably because you've been talking with them and helping them for years. So what I have an approach to asking people onto the podcast, and I'm gonna share. I think I've shared this before, but essentially I go to them via LinkedIn, and it's a method that not many people use. They forget about LinkedIn, and I say my audience really needs your help. I then ask them what they need help with, so a specific subject. I obviously mention their name. I mention, I've read this post, about conversion rate optimization. My audience are getting, really had up on A/B testing, for example. Would you be interested in coming on the podcast and helping solve that challenge? And, obviously being exposed to the audience. Yeah. So LinkedIn works super well for me. Another example of that is, we're going after a particular niche, like a super micro niche. There's only 41 people that would ever buy this product in the country. Wow. Yeah. So we are targeting all of them via LinkedIn. And I just sent a test message last night, 2 test messages. Instant reply within 10 minutes. Instant reply. Wow. So LinkedIn's,
you're killing it on LinkedIn.
Yeah, absolutely. So well worth reaching out on LinkedIn. That's how I got hold of Neil Patel, John Lee Dumas, Ran Fishkin from Moz, and all of the other guys. So try the LinkedIn method. And I can't remember what podcast number it was, but I've definitely talked through that method on the More Demand podcast. So bringing it in sort of full circle. So we went through your idea validation phase. We went through, the build out and the launch and the sort of celebrations of getting your first customer. We've understood your growth plans now. What is the next step for you over the sort of next, say, 3 to 6 months, or even, what are you looking at even shorter term, to take the next step in the business?
Yeah. So we launched in January. We had 12 paying customers in February, 13 paying customers in March. Not the same. There was, I think, 75% churn. What I'm just looking to do is just to slowly grow that number with the content and social marketing approach, to probably change a lot of stuff about the platform. And then at the end of June, when we've sort of reached the content goals and we've collated feedback, improved the platform, seen an increase in that churn rate, or like not an increase, a decrease in churn rate, then we'd move on and invest money and more time into scaling, into bringing more entrepreneurs to the platform.
So I'm going to ask some difficult questions. You don't have to answer them if you want, but
hit me.
How long is your runway in terms of what's your at the point where you go, crap, there's £0 in the bank now. What happens at that point? Hopefully it won't be there, but what happens?
Yeah. So our costs, I'm happy to share our costs per month, are pretty lean. So we have like £200 software, like server technology costs that I don't understand.
Yeah.
We have, in terms of labor, we're only hitting like $800. So here's my manager in the Philippines, and then he has an assistant as well. So, and then we have some other software as a service costs that I use for marketing, like lead pages and Zapier. So we're probably only at $1,200 monthly costs. Now, we can probably, like in terms of investment, it's just self-funded by myself at the moment. Right? I could probably run for a long time, like years, but I wouldn't want to if I didn't see the growth.
So the growth is the driver, and you're happy to invest, which is good, and it's nice to see that it's lean at $1,200. To be honest, talking about More Demand and being open and transparent, we had a £10,000 investment in More Demand, and we're burning through that slowly with Infusionsoft subscriptions and things like that. But you can have such a slow burn rate on cash. That you can really spend the time launching, these products and services. But you need to give yourself that honest runway. Now, obviously, I presume you're not drawing a wage from it at this point, no. So that's from the other businesses. So this is allowing you, an even longer runway. So what would you do differently if you had to draw a wage from it and make a mortgage payment? Would there be anything that you would do differently to the business now that you're not doing?
I might change a bit. We would consider changing the business model. But like what we have is a marketplace where we make a very small amount of money. Well, not very small. Like we make between $60 and $100 per virtual assistant hired. So we basically take 20% on top of the salary and provide software and a payment escrow service. Okay, so we make just that $60 to $100 revenue per virtual assistant hired. So I would potentially change up the business model and still solving the same problem, outsourcing admin from entrepreneurs, but maybe we would provide an unlimited amount of admin outsourcing for a certain amount per month upfront fee. So I wouldn't be charging for time, I would be charging to solve the problem. And then that would give us more money up front, but we wouldn't have so much of a automated system, I guess, that I think is more valuable to a buyer of the business in the long term. So I think the game we're playing at the moment is a very long game. If we build a system that will scale, it ultimately could be a big winner. I think we could help a lot of people. But if I had to draw a salary and needed money to pay a mortgage, or if I had a family that I had to support just through the business, I would potentially have chosen a different business model.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Thanks for sharing that. So, we've been through, covered a lot of ground today, Tom. So, just let the audience know where they can find out more about yourself and the business we've been talking about today.
Sure. virtualvalue.io is the marketplace if you want to check it out and come and give us some feedback before we launch into phase 2. And then tomhunt.io. I just share stuff that I learn about marketing through my personal brand. So if you want to learn more about myself and marketing, tomhunt.io. If you want to check out the marketplace, virtualvalue.io.
Awesome. And before we go, I know you did a chemistry degree.
Yes.
So I'm going to challenge you to a periodic table. Right. So I'm going to ask you two things on the periodic table. So here we go. Fe.
Iron.
Oh, good.
That's easy. Come on, give me a harder one.
Let's pick a harder one. I wanted to ease you in first. GD.
Gadolinium. Gadolinium.
Yeah, exactly that. So round of applause there. Yeah, well done. You stepped up to the challenge. Good man.
That was you really put me on the spot. I didn't know that was coming. I'm really glad I got it right as well.
Yeah. Good stuff, Tom. Well, thanks for being on the show. Really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure, Lawrence, and I really I want to thank you for having me on. I also want to thank you for what you're doing. When I was in the corporate world, really bored with the work I was doing, but wanting to leave, I would listen to YouTube videos and podcasts to sort of inspire me. And I think that really helped on my journey, having this sort of virtual friendship with people that were doing what I wanted to do. So I'm sure that what you're doing now is inspiring other people in the same situation.
Well, that's fantastic feedback. Thank you for that. And that's it for another edition of the More Demand podcast. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Thanks for listening to the More Demand podcast. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on iTunes and get the latest episode direct to your device every Wednesday.